Well, let's let baby Juggernaut. She is going to be the one that is going to transition us into the next topic because her next comment, usually you're the queen of
Taking my
transitioning line,
job,
but baby
baby.
Juggernaut is going to do it for us tonight because she says she's calling for the new duo Trump or Trance duo Trance Trump Vance seemed perfect for the cult. There's absolutely no question. But speaking of JD Vance is the guy that Donald Trump has picked to be his vice president. It is, I think, the first question that needs to be asked is why does Donald Trump need a new vice president? I think we all know why, because the last one he had tried to have killed. And the reason why he tried to have him killed is because the vice president did not illegally not certify the votes that Joe Biden clearly had in order to win the presidency in 2020. Lana, what are your thoughts on JD Vance?
I mean, just another MAGA. It's like,
yeah, kind of. You know, I mean he made
Trump.
a transition.
Oh, he's Trump.
Yeah. I mean, these guys get so mad at transgender people from transferring from men to women or women to men. These guys go from men to MAGA. And
well, which is interesting because I don't know. It's just I don't know, man. I'm tired of all of them, so they just make me really tired.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lana, I'm going to allow you to take about a 30-second nap here since you are tired, and you can listen to JD Vance. This is prior to him being the vice president, and this is his thoughts on his now running mate.
Guy. I never liked him. It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia. I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote for third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Lana, what do you think is worse to MAGA, that he suggested that Donald Trump raped a woman or that he would have voted for Hillary Clinton? What is worse to the MAGA people? I mean, in real world, we know what the difference is.
It's Hillary. Who's going to vote for Hillary? That's a no-brainer.
I'm afraid you may be right.
Trump can rape, be a pedophile. You could kill somebody on Fifth Ave. What do they care?
Yeah, I don't want to lose fact. I don't want to, lose the fact that, again, I am not going to have this idea that we're supposed to have sympathy now because Donald Trump was shot at. Again, I'm not a fan of anybody being shot at, but he's not a sympathetic figure to me. He's still a convicted felon. He's still a guy that was held liable for rape. He's still a guy that started an insurrection against this country. He got a bunch of people to believe that the election was rigged. We went over already a lot of the ugly, nasty things that he has said, and we only touched on a very small fraction of how awful this guy has been over the years. So I have zero sympathy for Donald Trump. I have sympathy for maybe the guy that got killed, even though something tells me I would not have been a big fan of him. I do know people in my life that are Donald Trump supporters, that I would never want to see shot and killed, especially if they had a wife and a child. But my sympathy for Donald Trump is on a scale level of 0. And if it could go below that, it would.
Totally agree. I don't really care. He's a fucking monster. You bragging about walking in on naked teen girls in your pageant. You're a monster. If you are calling for the execution of 5 Black kids, and then you double down when you find out that they've been exonerated after they spent all those years in prison, and you still double down and haven't apologized yet, you're a fucking monster. Like he separated children from their parents. He's a fucking monster. And there is no sympathy. And I was so upset that the Biden administration suspended their ads and like started to tamp down the things that they would say about him. Like, why? Fuck that. On the very night that motherfucker was grazed by a piece of glass, and I'll tell you why I think it was a piece of glass and not a
It
bullet.
wasn't a, but I don't care what anybody says. It wasn't a bullet.
It wasn't a bullet.
No, it wasn't.
Brian, knowing what we know about Donald Trump, the felon,
Yep.
if a bullet grazed his ear, he would have the doctors at that hospital give a press conference about how close to death Donald Trump was, that the bullet just mixed that and went to the cartilage and did. Trump would have, because that would even solidify his Jesus role to the MAGA even more, like, coming back from the dead or whatever they're fucking saying about him right now. Like, there's no way Trump would sit on that. He had Ronnie Jackson come out and talk about how good his health was when it wasn't that good. So it's no way he would treat with these doctors and not have them give a press conference about what happened to him. I can't see that.
It is my understanding that these guns are so powerful that even if it didn't touch him, that the speed and everything of it going by would have taken off half of his face. I mean, part of his face.
Right.
So, you know, that's the other thing too I want to say is that Donald Trump wasn't shot. He was shot at. Correct. So let's kind of change the narrative and the language that I see on headlines.
His face wasn't bloody.
Yeah, I mean, he had blood on his face.
Yeah, some troll was like, "What's the difference?" It's like you get more blood from a nosebleed. He wasn't bloody. Like bloody is not a trickle of blood down the side of your ear. I would never call 911 and be like, "Oh my God, his whole face his face is bloody," because they're gonna think it's everywhere. It's like, no, there's blood running down his.
And Baby Juggernaut, why can't we see the ear? I mean, you would think too that Donald Trump probably would be showing people maybe in a way, but he had this big old bandage on his ear yesterday, and I don't know.
Right, and that looked fake. Did you see the memes that they had? It was my
pillow and I did.
Yeah.
So, and you know, the thing is, Lana, is that we go back to Baby Juggernaut just put bullseyes on the thing. It's pretty funny. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, let's get back to JD Vance. So he went from hating Donald Trump to now he's full-blown MAGA. I don't know what happened. I don't know why it happened. But this is JD Vance talking about basically no-fault divorce and marriages. And this is his thought on somebody that may be in an abusive marriage.
One of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, you know, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy, and so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages, and I think that's what all of us.
Yeah, Lana, what do you think? If daddy is beating mommy, do you stay around just for the kids' sake?
According to Vance, you do.
I mean, the thought process there is alarming and scary. And my guess is that that's not going to go very well with the women voters.
Yeah.
But, like, this is just crazy. And again, if any politician had said this as I was growing up, they would be disqualified in a second. Right. In a second. Right. It wouldn't even be close. They would be giving a press conference the next day saying that I resign, I regret my statements. I say this, but this guy is about to possibly be the vice president of the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
And he says he thinks you should stay in marriages, even if you're getting beaten, because it doesn't work out well for the kids. Do you think
Right.
that the kids grow up in what do you think their mental state is when they're in a household where mommy's getting beaten up every day?
No one's they're thinking about the control over the woman, and that just goes in line with no, you can't control your own body because obviously you can't control your thoughts. Your body belongs to me. That's why I get to beat up on you and you have to stay. No, you can't have an abortion because that is my body and you cannot control it. I mean, it all is all in line. I mean, that's not the worst he said. He said, no abortion, even if it's a little kid that got raped.
Well,
He
let's
don't
hear it.
care.
Yeah, let's hear that straight from his mouth. This is
Yeah.
what he says on abortion.
Should a woman be forced to carry a child to term after she has been the victim of incest or rape?
Look, my view on this has been very clear, and I think the question betrays a certain presumption that's wrong. It's not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term.
He's using too many words, by the way, to get to his
Mhm.
point. It's just like, don't try to sound
trick you, yeah.
sophisticated and intelligent in your answer so you could set it up with your smooth landing.
It's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society.
So, again, the rape babies are inconvenient. You're right. This is a Stone Age sort of mentality that these guys are having. It is control our women. They will always be under our control. We will tell them how their lives are going to be. They will be on their best behavior. And, we will do whatever it is that we want to do.
Yeah. Basically, they just don't even think further than their own, like, just right in front of them. They don't even think further than that. Like, so we force a little kid to deliver a baby because why? Because I'm saving the baby, right? Like, but what about the kid, right? So now we have two babies that somebody has to take care of. How many kids are you adopting, Vance? Like, how many donations are you making to the local, foster care place or the foster care system? Because that's what you guys are really doing. So, in those southern and red states, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, there's going to be some serious issues in the foster care system, even worse than what we see now. Those kids are going to go in, those kids are going to get abused, those kids are going to be raped, and the cycle's going to continue because according to the Republicans, even if you're raped in foster care, you got to keep it.
And I also have to imagine
two kids in foster care now, two
Right.
more kids.
Right. I mean, I don't know how to answer this, and Lana, and I don't know if even you can answer it, but you would have more of insight to it than I would. But could a mother, and I would imagine in some respects, some of them 100% do, is that if, let's say, you're forced to have the baby that was you were raped and you were forced to have the baby. I know a mother, when they have something in their womb and they give birth to it, there's a natural love there. But I would have to imagine that there got to be a lot of women that have a lot of resentment that, I've got to do this, and now I'm going to resent this kid for the rest of my life.
How do you love this kid? You try to separate, but how?
Yeah.
That he was born from something very violent, and every time you see that child, that's what you're going to think about. And can someone get over that? I'm sure women can get over it, but I'm pretty sure it's very difficult, and everyone cannot do that. So that's going to cause another thing, right? Someone just putting the kid outside, or even worse, maybe killing it after it, like for reals, because
Right.
you can't force a woman to have a child before they're ready. Like, it just doesn't, or when they're not ready, or when they're raped under, like, it's just, ew, like, how can you be this stupid?
Lana, let me ask you this. I wonder what the reaction would be if somehow in this lifetime that you could just take a child that is unwanted or something like that. Let's say it's somebody in a foster care or whatever that was going to go to foster care, but instead you just took the child, you bashed through some bachelor's door who was enjoying life, who was going on vacations, who was watching the ball games whenever he wanted to, and somebody came in and said, this baby is now yours. You now own this baby and you have to take care of him for the rest of your life. I mean, my guess is that they might think a little bit differently.
Right. And because it doesn't happen like that, it just, all of it falls on the mother. And that's the fucked up shit. It's just, it's so many levels. I mean, I do have a question for JD Vance, because what if his wife was raped, ended up pregnant?
That's always the question. That's
right?
always the question.
He gonna raise that kid? Like, he gonna be like, just, it's not the kid's fault? No, you're gonna have issues about that. And here's the other piece that I think about all the time, because they want to criminalize miscarriages, because if you're giving personhood to an embryo, so that's a person. So if you drink too much, lose your embryo, lose the pregnancy, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to be arrested, and they're going to try to indict you for murder, right? So if, say, you're a crackhead, say your boyfriend introduced you to crack, say y'all smoke crack together, you start to feel some stomach whatever, you're having a miscarriage, he calls the ambulance, you go in, she was smoking crack, now she's losing the baby, she gets in fucking trouble, she goes to jail. He just like, walk away, I'll visit you, I'll tell your mama. Like, it's like, what? Keep smoking the crack? Like, huh? What is this?
It's a great question. And I do believe, and to a point that you made earlier too, is that, you know, I think it is fair game in these, whether they're debates or they're interviews or anything like that, to ask these men and make it personal. If they do have a 13-year-old daughter and says, if your 13-year-old daughter was raped, would you force her to have the child?
Right.
Don't just ask it in a general sense. Make it personal. Ask them, if your wife, do you love your wife? You do? If your wife was raped, are you telling me that you are saying that she should have the child and both of you are going to raise that child? Is that what you're telling me? And they should make these questions more personal rather than just in the general sense.
And they never do.
Because they're afraid to do it, and they think it's, you know, they think it's out of bounds. But to me, that's not out of bounds at all. Not at all.
Right. Right.